Hello, everybody. It is me, Seventh Hanuman. What time is it right now? It's late. Oh wow, 10:30 p.m. on the West Coast on a Sunday evening. I want to dedicate tonight's live to targeted individuals in fear of voice to skull. So for UTIs that are not, or you believe you are not receiving voice to skull, let me tell you, you are receiving voice to skull. You just have not discovered it yet. You have not made the connection to discovering that you are receiving voice to skull. And I want to play a video tonight. It's an interview, and the person being interviewed was Dr. Robert Duncan. And as he talks about voice to skull and gang stalking, I will give my opinion on the interview and what they're saying, and if I agree or disagree. Feel free to join me on this live. I posted the link in the chat. Just copy paste into your browser and yeah, join in on this live chat. So I will start now playing this video. Here we go.
Live. Hello, my name is Tyrone Alexander Duke. I am the author of Satellite Directed Energy Weaponry Terrorism, Illuminati Got Me. It covers 30 years of my life of being a victim of satellite directed energy weaponry terrorism, the same crime that these young men tried to explain before the horrific end of their life. I don't know if you remember Aaron Alexis, September 16th, 2013. He went to the Naval Yard where he worked at, and he murdered 12 people. After that, there was Myron May, a young successful trial attorney for the district attorney in New Mexico. He quit his job abruptly, went to Florida, where he grew up at, went to Florida State, where I believe he attended college, and shot 3 people. His suicide note mirrors the experiences that I wrote about. Today, there's only one guy in our lives that could actually explain what's going on with us, and his name is ex-CIA engineer, Dr. Robert Duncan. Can you please tell the people what we're complaining of?
Yes, I've worked on a lot of these technologies, and I have a non-disclosure agreement with the government, which I absolutely respect. I worked for the on projects for the Department of Defense, CIA, Justice Department, on such things as writing the artificial intelligence code to triangulate on nuclear submarines, inner city gunshot fire, the EG.
I have to stop the video. When he said he got a non-disclosure agreement with the government, he didn't mention what branch of the government or what department, but if he's got the non-disclosure agreement with the government, is he even allowed to be talking about this stuff? So I understand if you want to be technical, maybe he can't talk about the actual design or the how the machines is put together, or the specific ways to use the machine. But those are the juiciest of information. And he can't even share those information. So he is, in a way, it's just leading the majority of TIs on this path of believing it is the government. Now, if you've been following my channel, I know it's not the government. I know it's not the U.S. government. And I know it's none of the government on this planet. But For the ones that do believe it is the government, that is fine because you're on your own path of discovering what's going on. But like I said before, you can go back before World War II because a lot of these TIs believing is the government, they would say is MK Ultra started, back in World War II, World War One. But why not go beyond that? Go beyond that. You can find stories of V2K. You can find story of V2K in the Bible. And I don't even read the Bible. But there are plenty of stories in the Bible talking about voice to skull or hearing voices coming in to their mind, into their head. And let's just say it is the government. That government owns the world. That government can control the entire world. That government is invincible because if you're a TI, you're going through voice to skull, I hope you're winning the battle because I hope you have the no fear mentality because if you do not, well, maybe I can help you in this live chat because you need that no fear mentality. You do not want to be scared while receiving voice to skull.
Control of robots, and the list goes on. But my recent research and my interest has been in 1,000 interviews that I have done to expose some crimes against humanity. And I've been collecting this data for over a decade, interviewing people like you to understand what are the methods of these no-touch brainwashing, mind control, and behavior modifications experiments that have come out of the CIA initially, that it was discovered on a project that's a very generic name. They keep changing project names, MK Ultra. And they also use stalking methods that were developed under the FBI called COINTELPRO, counterintelligence. And it's how to control groups and populations and people that may make more of an influence in social cohesion that they're targeting and interested in.
Well, the technology.
All right, I'm going to come right off the bat and tell all of you. I watched a few videos on Dr. Robert Duncan, and so far, this is my opinion, he's just speaking jargon. What I mean by speaking jargon is he's just speaking nonsense. I mean, he's got an idea what's going on, but he doesn't really know what's going on. That is 100% my opinion on him. And as you're listening to his interview, he's going to contradict himself on many, many areas. And I will point them out as we go. For one, he is talking about these different methods the government's using, but then he doesn't go into detail. He doesn't even tell which branch of the government. Oh, because he signed the confidential non-disclosure. And that to me just doesn't make any sense. Because right now, as he's talking now, he could be in big trouble. He could actually get sued, or he can probably go to jail. I don't know what's in the contract, but he shouldn't even be touching any of this topic whatsoever.
Technologies that we're complaining of, actually, they're putting voices into people's heads. That is what these young men were complaining about before they committed the crimes. During Alexis, he felt as if he was being followed. Now, you might not understand this, but they're using something I believe called extreme low frequency waves. These extreme low frequency waves, once they put a voice in your head, they're able to cause pain. And if you understand how, that could affect you, can't sit at work, you can't go to school, you can't do anything. Myron May complained of the same thing, and both of these young men were complaining of they're trying to force me off my job, they're trying to scare me off my job, and they finally did that to them. So, Duncan, can you explain how people are hearing voices in their mind? Or can you explain that can you at least admit that it's true that these technologies exist?
They absolutely exist, but I want to take a step back with you.
All right.
What did these two young men, what was their real message? Why did they feel they needed to go to violence to get their message out? And did that work?
Well, to be completely honest with you, it gets to a point, I'm a victim. So it gets to a point of where you feel like you've tried to have a quality of life. And what's happening to you, there's no way to stop what they're doing to you. And it never should have been done to us in the first place. So they all felt like the only way they can get their message out of my life is being ruined. I'm hearing these voices in my mind. They're causing extreme pain. Was to go out and actually commit violence. So did it help? Well, for me, if it wasn't for Aaron and Alexis, my mother and family would have possibly thought I was still crazy. I published my book a month before that, and my family was wondering, what the hell is this guy talking about? He's talking like he's hearing voices, he's feeling pain. They've been doing this to him for over 30 years. And I was actually in the basement. My mother called me upstairs. She said,
Notice how he said he's been hearing voices for 30 years. And yeah, that's true. From what I understand, one of my video, I mentioned this lady in her journal after she passed away. She wrote down how these voices was tormenting her for 40 years, making a bunch of lies, telling her she's going to have a lot of money, telling her to go to a casino. And I myself, personally, I had gone to the casino believing in these voice to skull, these garbage stain gang stalkers. I believed they were going to help me at the casino. But every time they would be talking along the way the entire time. But as soon as I stepped foot into the casino, they stopped talking. So ever since that first time I lost a couple $100, I no longer trust them. That was the night where I just draw the line. I don't trust them no more. And I recommend all you gang stalkers to not lie to your targeted individuals if you actually want to have a conversation, and maybe one day you can fix whatever you did wrong to your targeted individuals. Because as a TI, my personal experience to all TIs, no matter how hard these gang stalkers eventually one day will try to fix their relationship with you, do not trust them. Your gang stalkers messed up the relationship, and it's going to be like this till the end. So for all you TIs out there, do not trust them. And if you're in fear of these voices, it is possible that you could become a victim, just like Myron May and this gentleman sitting there talking about being scared, and that's what these voices will do to you. If you're scared of these voices, it will make you lose yourself. Some people will become a bum on the street trying to get rid of these voices, but they can't, and they're in fear. I teach you guys to be in no fear, because having no fear, you're winning that mental battle. So you have home court advantage inside your mind by having no fear. And I have no problem talking trash to my gang stalkers using my mind. But I have to admit, sometimes when there's no one around me, I do like to just talk trash to them. Just talk openly and talk trash to them because it feels good. Every time I talk trash to my gang stalkers, it feels great. But once in a while, that takes energy out of you, right? Takes energy out of me talking trash to them. So that's how I discovered, oh, you know what? I'll just record myself in an audio and play it on loop in low volume. Extremely low volume, 1 bar. Go to the equalizer and turn everything down, just 1 bar, and they can hear it. They can hear it. So you need to do that. If you're a TI receiving voice to skull, you need to play your own audio for your gang stalkers in the background throughout the day. And do that for a week. Okay, do it every day for 7 days, and you don't even need a week. And you should see, or you should be able to notice the result, immediate result, that they are less aggressive towards you. But if you're not doing that to your gang stalkers, they're going to feel like they just got control of you. They can run over you, meaning using their voices anytime they want. They're going to start building this ego like they can just mess with you whenever they like. So don't become a victim of that. If you're receiving voices skull, you have to talk trash back to them using your mind.
Says, Ty, come here. I ran upstairs and, a little upset because now I went from a guy who's made about $2 million before I was 30, and it was taken from me by the person speaking to me, causing pain and telling me, if you want us to make the pain stop, this is what you have to go do. So he forced me to go to strip clubs, forced me to go to, spending my money very irresponsibly. So, and they would say things like, well, you got to live like your kind of people like to live. And when they say that, they're referring to the ignorance of the Black community. How they go out and ostentatiousness, all the guys with the gold chains on and all of that. I didn't want to live that life. And I don't think these two young men wanted to either. So did their message get out and did it help? Well, it did help. But I do not condone going out committing mass violence. Good. And I don't think you condone that either. No. There are other ways to get your message out. But Aaron Alexis, he worked IT. He was intelligent. Myron May, successful trial attorney. I mean, we worked our entire lives. Most of us come from the projects, or we come from some poor neighborhood, and now we are a project, and there's no relief from it. Aaron Alexis, he was told to go take all these different kind of pills, I believe, trazodone, whatever it was, and Myron May also. And these pills did not help these young men. And if you're a sane person, then and you're taking prescription meds, what's next? And it's not helping. The way that we know that we're targeted individuals is that the person speaking to us makes sure that we understand that they're in complete control.
So that's right. That's called neuro-linguistic programming, and it's an entire field in the Army, and we use it in propaganda. But using this, what's often called voice-to-skull technology, literally piping subliminal messages and overt messages to the target that no one else can hear, you can alter behavior. Well, that's why commercials work. I mean, you're altering behavior based on the programming of television and radio, and you can do that with human beings. And so they were programmed. There's no doubt in my mind that they were true, what are called targeted individuals. And all that means is they were brought into these secret government programs that I mentioned earlier, and they're being experimented with. Now, maybe there is an end goal here, and we can only hypothesize about that.
All right, the more I listen to him, the more I'm just waiting for him to tell me something that is just makes him legitimate. Like he's actually really know what's going on, and I have not heard anything yet. Nothing specific when he talk about all these programs. Not one mention of any program. And I would expect him to just go straight to how voice to skull works. Not just these general information that all TIs receiving voice to skull would have already done their research on. And it's just the same basic information. I'm still waiting for him to give me that information that is just above the basic.
More terror and more violence there is in our society, perhaps then they can get the population to take away gun rights. We don't know what their true end goal is here. We can only speculate.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. With the that's I was putting out a lot of tweets with the after the Aaron elections. I said, the government has turned this into a debate about gun violence and mental illness when the true debate should be about cybersecurity. Because all of these technologies are done remotely. Am I correct? This is all can
this all be done remotely? This is all done remotely now. They used to have to put you in a laboratory. Then they would run the electroshock, give you drugs, use hypnosis, and then they could create split personalities and create Manchurian candidates. Now it can all be done remotely in the privacy of your own home. In fact, they prefer isolation.
Jeez. So you mean like when a lot of this can be did while we're sleeping, a lot of this programming, for those hours of sleep, those hours of just being at home. And, these young men, you don't have to have a chip implanted in you.
You do not have to have a chip implanted in you, but and they used to do that. There's Dr. Delgado, and he used to put chips in human brains, and they had wires and radio controls in their heads, and you can alter emotional states of his subjects. And but the technology has advanced much further than that. There are theories that a sensitizer needs to be put into the individual, make them more electromagnetically sensitive under certain frequencies in order to modulate the brain, to pipe in the new information. And that gets to your other question, well, how do you transmit speech into a human being? And I can talk freely about three techniques. There's bone conductance. And that's, people might experience this by biting down on a spoon and flicking it. They can hear it in their head, this loud,
the vibrations.
It goes into the inner ear. There's one called EG heterodyning. I'm going to skip that one. There's one called ultrasonic heterodyning, and that is using ultrasonic sound waves and interfering them in a modulated low frequency state that the human brain can understand. And that's very directional and targeted. They often call it the audio spotlight as another name for it. There's the microwave hearing effect or radar hearing effect that was discovered by a couple radar engineers. If they stood in front of the radar dish, they could hear a buzzing, a tinnitus. And quite interestingly, is a lot of TIs hear that tinnitus. And that, arguably uses what's called a heating effect, and it expands the brain ever so slightly, vibrates it, which goes to the inner ear. The EEG cloning and heterodyning is much more complicated, so let's wait on describing.
I understand that. Please don't complicate.
I made a video on tinnitus and how I believe all targeted individuals have tinnitus to some degree. And for me, when the ringing sound gets loud, or usually when I really ticked off my dumpster stain gang stalkers. So when I, talk trash back to them or doing something that really ticked them off, the tinnitus will become very loud. And when it's loud, what happens is it increases my state of trance. I've been talking about state of trance, and that's what's going on with a lot of TIs, where it just go about the day. For me, I would go about the day, going through the routine, going to work, doing what I need to do, coming home, taking care of some things, but throughout the day, there'll be little details that I would not be able to remember. And when the tinnitus is extremely loud, I could be listening to music or I could be driving, and I wouldn't even realize that I've been thinking about these random things in my mind, which are caused by the tinnitus and these gang stalkers. and they're inducing these thoughts into my mind, making me think about stuff that are not important to me in my life. I would say creative thoughts. So they're creative thoughts, interesting thoughts, but not realistic. And it most likely does not benefit my life. And it drains my mental energy. And it helps the gang stalkers with manipulating my mind for the rest of the day. And a good way to defend against that when I realize that they've been doing it to me is to plug my ears, close my eyes, and just hum. Close my eyes, plug my ears, and hum, and feel that vibration in my head. Do that for about 2 minutes. I open my eyes, and I feel so much better. And when I hum, I can hear the gang stalkers squeaking. They'll make these squeaking sound as if they're not enjoying me humming. There were times when they tell me I'm being too loud because when I hum, they can hear it and I'm just too loud. So they would complain to me, but I wouldn't care. I'll just keep on humming. So for those of you TIs out there receiving voice to skull and you're starting to have headaches, okay, that's another thing. They talk about headaches. Hum. Rub the spot where you have the headache, okay? Just kind of rub the area. Rub it for a few minutes. Close your eyes. Plug your ears and hum. Keep humming. Hum for about 5 minutes. You're going to feel so much better. And it works. Or if you have a hair dryer nearby, I made a video talking about that. Turn that thing on and just kind of point it at your hair. Move it around a little bit. That helps. But some of you will say, oh, I mean, in the past, I have to admit, I did at one point try to use foil, okay, but that didn't work. Immediately, it didn't have an immediate effect on stopping the headaches or the pain on certain part of my head. But if I rubbed on my head where the pain was, if I do that for about a few minutes, just rub on the area, and then put the foil hat on, then the foil hat tends to help keep the pain from actually increasing again. So, but then again, wearing a foil hat, that just looked ridiculous. I used a t-shirt. I wet a t-shirt, use some cold water, soak the t-shirt. Well, not too soak, but I mean, I don't know if you guys care, but I don't care. So I just put the t-shirt, wrap it around my head, and that works really well. The wet t-shirt, that is. And it's good to not stay in the same area. If you're getting headaches, you're going to need to get up and walk away from the area. And by me saying that, some of you might think, oh, okay, because they're beaming something at you at the location. And I totally understand what you're saying. If you're believing, oh, they're beaming something at the location, which is true because they're really concentrated. I would say they're more really concentrated on the area because you've been sitting there. Just get up, walk away, move around. But that's if you're just trying to get rid of this pain. See, for me, I do something different because I know I'm more advanced. I'm gonna tell you guys what I do now. I'll get up, I'll grab a cardboard or 2 books, and I'll start swinging the area where I was sitting, just literally above where my head was. And I would feel a resistance in the air Okay, a resistance in the air, like as if something was concentrated above my head. And as I swing, I already know I'm slapping my gang stalkers. Because, like I've been teaching you guys, your gang stalkers is right next to you now. They're always next to you. They're listening to this as you're listening to this. They're right next to you. And when you move, they cling on to you. That's why, for those of you TIs try to move across the country, move out of state, move out of the city, move to a new location, new town, new city, new continent, it follows you because it's clinged onto you. It's not because someone's in a van parked outside trying to use the machine and beam something directly at you. No. Your gang stalkers are next to you and they're dumpster stains. Dumpster stains. You don't have to be nice to them. If you've been watching my videos, I'll tell you this right now. Your gang stalkers would be scared to let you realize voice to skull, because once you realize, if you're not receiving voice to skull as a TI and you're watching my videos, as soon as you recognize voice to skull, they are at a disadvantage. So right now they're trying to keep you from recognizing voice to skull, because their goal, I'll tell you what their goal is to live life and enjoy life, but yet they want to do the things that they want to do by having you as a TI do what they tell you. And that's what this gentleman here with the red hat is talking about, how the voice of skull would tell him to go to a strip club and go do all this other stuff. That is their goal, is to be able to scare you to a point of telling you to do certain things that they want you to do, and you would just follow their directions. You would take their commands. And they can cling on to anyone. They can cling on to your family members. They can cling on to your friends. So if you are out and about and you met some really interesting people and your gang stalkers realize those people are more interesting, or there's opportunity for them, your gang stalker could actually just leave you and go cling on to them. It is very possible. But will all of them leave? No, because you have a lot of gang stalkers clinging onto you, and it's like a hierarchy. The more powerful gang stalkers could just leave and go follow someone more interesting, while the rest, some will stay behind. Yes, we are like commodities to these gang stalkers. They're spirits. Gang stalkers are spirits. And gang stalkers can use voice to skull to tell you they're a 5-0, they're a government. I know this because I already went through that phase. All TI starts believing it's the government, while some TIs will advance out of that phase. And majority of TIs are less fortunate, and they'll get stuck in that phase of believing it's government, and they will not advance out of that phase. And like I've been teaching you guys, it's harder for you if you have neighbors really close by, because as soon as you open the door, you can see your neighbor's door. And it's like, it's making it hard for you to investigate and find the answer, to test and see if it's really your neighbors. And the difference between most TIs and me is my neighbors are hundreds of yards away. I can go outside at any time of the night, and I can't even see my neighbor's doors. And For example, I was watching this video this TI was talking about. It was this lady. I watched it through a Nerve Gorilla's video. He was talking about this lady, how she kept calling 911 and telling the police how she's being gang stalked and all this stuff. So one of the comments she made was, when she's taking a bath, she can hear her neighbors talking about her in real time as she's taking a bath. So that led her to believe she's being watched in her bathroom. Now, let me tell you, right away, I already knew what's going on. Because eventually she kept talking about it, but then she can't produce a hidden camera. Like, she talks like she knows there's a hidden camera, but then she couldn't find a hidden camera. Okay. So that is a classic tactic that the gang stalker used. Okay. The spirits, because what she did not realize was when she's in the bath and she can hear her neighbors talking about her, whatever she was doing, like as if they were watching her in real time, taking a bath. Those were not her real living neighbor next door. She was receiving voice to skull. But she did not realize that. And she believed it's actually her neighbors. Most likely the walls are thin or whatever. And that is because she lives at a location with a lot of neighbors. And right away, she assumes it's the neighbors. And she did not realize she's receiving voice to skull. And for me, it took me a while, even though I was receiving voice to skull. It took me over 6 months, 6 months to a year. Even though I live at a place with no neighbors nearby. So when I would hear my neighbors on the other side of the window that I thought it was my neighbors, no one was on camera. I would set up motion sensor lights just to see if the lights would turn on. The lights were off. And I would walk outside and the lights work. There were times when I would actually run outside. I would run towards the window and move the blinds just to peep out the window, because I was really fierce and pissed off and I want to just confront these neighbors. Every time I do it, no one's there. To a point where I believe it was some Bluetooth speakers or something. Or they put speakers inside, they put speaker outside somehow, hit a speaker right by the window. That's why I can hear them so clearly. I even use a radio, buy one of those the analog radios, and move it around and try to find like any hidden statics. I've done all of that. There's no hidden speakers, and there's no one on the other side of the wall. And even by confronting, at the time I believe it was my neighbor, I would confront, the voice that I would hear. Never once caught any person on camera or caught anyone outside running away. Nothing. I even have 2 German Shepherds. I got dogs outside, no barking, nothing. But I could hear these neighbors. Never once caught them. And still took me over 6 months to a year to realize I'm hearing voice to skull, but how are they doing it? And of course, yeah, the logical way is the government. And my gang stalker was telling me they were 5-0. They were telling me they were a remote viewer. So by them telling me, it's making me believe that they are what they are. And it didn't change until I just had enough where I started cussing at them. And when I started cussing at them, they would get really pissed off and they would cuss back and start having a battle of cussing at each other. And even in that phase, it took months and months and months to build my courage, because I would still believe that, are they government? Am I cussing at 5-0? And eventually I realized these guys are not 5-0s. I would cuss away. They would, when I would go pick up some weed, they would tell me, oh, as soon as you start driving, we're going to bust you. I still remember that first time when I picked something up and I was like worried that as I'm start driving, right? So I kind of put it in the trunk, kind of put it away, and yeah, it went through my mind that, oh man, what if I get busted right now on the freeway? I kept looking at my rearview mirror. Nothing happened. The second time around, nothing happened. So only by doing that, eventually I just realized these guys are full of shit. These gang stalkers are full of shit. And at the same time, I'm also talking shit to them, you see? So I was able to keep calling their bluffs and talking trash. And each time I do it, I feel like I'm just doing something right because I feel like these guys are invading my privacy and I have every right to talk shit to them. And keep building up my courage, keep building up my defense. And now I'm here teaching you guys and sharing my experience with you guys. So if you're a TI, you're receiving voice to skull, you must find a way to not be scared of those voices because they are just voices. But the power in those voices is by making you scared. If you're not scared, those voices lose most of its power. Now, they can say things that are hurtful, right? They can say things about your mom, about your significant other, about your kids, about you, make fun of you, humiliate you, talk trash about your family, talk about murdering your family, Like they could say all those things that are hurtful, but over time, for me, it did not bother me like the first few months. So you have to understand they will say anything to you. Do not be in fear. No matter what you're doing, they will mess with your family regardless. That's how I see it. Because I know when they mess with my family, because I notice our conversation will become more confrontational. Or I can tell my family member a certain time when their mood will all of a sudden change. It's because I know these gang stalkers are now messing with them. And by my family member's mood changing, it affects me. So my weakness is, people closest to me. But I can't give up on the people closest to me just to get away from these emotional feelings that they cause on my family member to hurt me. Does that make any sense? Whenever they talk trash about my family, I just stick to the same thing. I'll just say F you. I will F you. I'll just stick with that. I love playing the F you audio. Low volume. Looping. Maybe you should try that if you don't mind playing that. But if you don't like playing stuff like that, then you're going to need to find your own way, find your own method. And if it works, share with the community.
Or the audience, don't confuse them. What I really want to know about is the ability to control emotions.
So it's very interesting. We think we're so unique as human beings, but we have an emotional signal cluster. Now, in universities, you can see this research being done, and you can imagine, the military and other agencies have probably about a 30 to 50 year advantage than what the public will know about. In research is that certain parts of the brain light up under certain emotional states, and you can also inject those same signals into other human beings. So let me give you an example from the 1970s. An Army colonel, intelligence officer, stated that the Russians were broadcasting a psychotronic signal in the microwave frequency to the US. And so we started doing the same to them. And the final conclusion is they were trying to placate, to relax our population so we don't go to war. They thought we were the aggressors, and that's a quote from him. And so you can do it over a population. We know that. It's like putting Prozac in the water supply to calm the population, and so they don't protest, they don't care. But you can also do it to individuals, and very specifically. You can clone emotions onto them outside of the lab, and it's part of this remote technology.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, that's something I experienced myself, and it really got to the point of where I wasn't sure if it was. I knew it wasn't me, you know, because they were calling the anger, you know, the sadness, the happiness, and everything, and I was going, these are my emotions, you know, I'm perfectly fine before I'm inflicted with these vibrations that I feel, and so.
Okay.
So when they're cloning your emotion, you really have to be careful to figure out, is it your emotions that you're feeling, or is it something that's being inflicted on you? One way to tell that you're possibly going to feel vibrations going through your body, you know, which amps up, you know, your natural emotions, or, you know, whatever it is that they're doing to you.
Well, human beings naturally, we're driven by our emotions. So it's the perfect lever in controlling a human being. And so they very much study how injecting different emotions in different situations will alter the behavior of the human being. And they've done this with monkeys. They've done it in a lot of different research that your audience can look up on the internet.
That's interesting. Well, you heard it from a guy who knows that it can be did. Now, these young men here, they complain about something that most people will never understand.
Now, I want to make a mention about the emotion part. When you have a no fear mentality, and as time progresses, you're going to have a stronger defense against these gang stalkers and against your voice to skull. For instance, they talk trash about my family. At first, it's not a good feeling, you know, emotionally makes me want to like do something back, you know what I'm saying? Do something back to the gang stalkers. But by having that no fear mentality over time, what they're saying about my family member will not trigger that same emotion as it did initially in the beginning. And now this could take months and months or years, but you will get better as you strengthen your mind and be able to talk trash back to these gang stalkers. What works for me is when I talk trash to the gang stalkers, they behave differently. But if I ignore them for too long, it feels like their egos start building up and they can just keep talking more trash to me to a point where I need to say something back to them. Now, they also try to tell me, oh, they want to train me to be able to not say anything back to them, being complete silent. And initially, it's kind of hard, but now I kind of understand because I've gotten to a point where the voice to skull would come into my mind and I don't even focus on it. I'm becoming more and more just ignoring them to a point where just what they're saying to me, it doesn't even do anything to me emotionally. Now the next phase is they're sending me images, some disturbing images, maybe like an accident with a family member or an accident while I'm driving or something like that. And when that image comes into my mind for an inexperienced TI, they will most likely continue those images and thoughts and becomes disturbing to them. Don't be scared. I mean, in the beginning, it's going to happen. But when I receive these images, I am getting better at recognizing it, and I do not let those thoughts and images continue. Because when they want to send images into my mind, I receive the image, I see the image in my mind, but I haven't been able to completely block them from sending it to me. As if for me, there's no way right now to block those images coming in. But there is a way for me to stop continuing thinking about the situation of those images. So for UTIs, if you're getting voice to skull and receiving these images and you're recognizing these images, practice stopping those images from continuing. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative, a disturbing, disgusting image. When I'm talking trash to them and they want me to calm down, they know what I like. Okay. Like maybe they know I like talking about basketball or some hobbies that I like. That's the tactic they'll use. They'll send me images of me doing certain hobbies that I like and then take my focus from talking trash to them away and into the hobbies that I like. So that's their way of doing damage control. And now I'm starting to recognize it and I will continue talking trash. I wouldn't even think about those things that I like hobbies. So you can do that as well, but it's going to take practice. It's going to take time. And you will not get to this part if you do not understand the no fear mentality. And for a TI that's receiving voice to skull and you're in fear, you are actually in trouble. But with that being said, you can easily turn it around. You just got to find your own inner strength and in a way, your method of bringing the no fear into your soul, your spirit. You have to find a way to talk trash. Just talk trash for a little bit and give it some time, and you're gonna start winning this mental battle. You can't just not do anything, because if you're not doing anything, in a way, they're still training you to take all these abuse in your mind. And if you're a strong person, I would imagine you can take the abuse. You might be able to operate, live your life, but you wouldn't be that happy, because I would imagine the gang stalker would be a bunch of assholes to you. Because I never experienced that. I never experienced just for a long time, I just take their bullshit and just don't do anything and just ignore them. My experience was I actually talk trash to them. So I talk trash to them, and that's my experience. So if you're a TI and your experience is to ignore them and it works for you, then it's good for you.
And I'll try to explain it in my book before their events ever happen. It's called gang stalking. And from my experience, it's when other people, other humans, are hearing the same person speaking to us through using this microwave technology or whatever, or satellite, whatever it is they're using. And they're told.
Notice majority TI is just like this. They don't know exactly what they're doing. They don't know exactly how it's being done. I'm telling you right now, they're spirits, and there's a lot of them, and they're all next to you.
To follow us around and harass us as if we're doing something wrong, and these people believe that they are doing something.
And it's not the people in public; it's the spirits talking to you in the direction of those people. So you're hearing voice to skull, or you look in a certain direction, it's actually these spirits guiding you to look at that direction. And then as soon as you look at the direction, it's also these other spirits telling you that person's a gang stalker. And next thing you know, your mind just freaking believe that person's a gang stalker. All TIs go through this, but very few TIs will actually advance out of this phase. And majority of TIs are just stuck. So that's why some TIs, well, majority of TIs, when they go out, they'll be like, oh, there's a gang stalker. There's a perp. That's a perp. That's a one headlight. That's a perp. Oh, the arms out the window. That's a perp. That's a gang stalker. Oh, one broken tail light. That's a perp. That's a gang stalker. All nonsense. But I've been there, so I know what that's like. But I'm telling you, that's all nonsense. The only reason the TI believe those are perps or gang stalkers is because the spirit, the gang stalker spirit, is actually talking to you and making you look in that direction. And then they also reassure you using lower voice to skull, telling you to think about, oh, that's a gang stalker. That's a perp. That's why the TI's mind are stuck believing they're gang stalkers and perps when they have no solid proof. How is it possible for a TI to walk down the street and label people 5 out of 8, 7 out of 10 people as gang stalkers and perps with no proof? It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. The TI is not, can't see through the car, can't read other people's minds and get the confirmation. The TI is just talking out loud because the TI did not realize that they're in a state of trance. And they're in the state of trance. They're listening to the gang stalkers, and the gang stalker can tell this TI which ones are gang stalkers and which one are perps. And if the TI are in a deep state of trance, the TI will actually believe those are his or her thoughts. But they're not his or her thoughts, because a TI will not naturally start thinking everyone's a gang stalker or perp if nothing else is influencing the TI's mind. The TI will just kind of go about doing their own thing, whatever they need to get done. The TI don't need to think that everyone is a gang stalker. They are led to believe everyone's a gang stalker because they're in a state of trance. The gang stalkers already got them in a state of trance, and the TI is listening to the gang stalkers through lower voice to skull. The TI didn't even realize that they were listening to lower voice to skull. So he or she start filming and start calling people gang stalkers and perps on the streets. If they're not listening to lower voice to skull, a TI would not focus on that subject. Notice how they are purposely put into that focus of that subject of labeling people on the street as gang stalkers. They can easily think about anything they want on this planet. They can think about anything they want. They can think about making money. They can think about making their life better. They can think about what they discovered. They can think about anything. They can think about, oh, can't wait to get home and take care of this, so they can go do this, do that, or watch this show, watch this movie, whatever, or fix this, fix that, or build this thing, or think about anything they want. But those TIs are stuck on the topic of labeling people in public as gang stalkers and perps. It's because they're in a state of trance. And they've been in the state of trance ever since they woke up from their sleep. Because when we're sleeping, the gang stalkers does the most activity on us. They get into our minds and they mess with us. Because in our mind, when we're sleeping, one, we're not moving. We're just kind of chilling on this little area we call bed. So we're not moving around too much. So they have all that time to mess with us, and we're not moving too much. And in our dream, it's like a playground for them. And I teach you guys, you have to understand no fear mentality, because if you have no fear mentality, you bring that spirit with you into your dreams. So you have some defense in your dreams because you're awake for 2/3 of the day. So for 2/3 of the day, you're awake and you understand no fear mentality. So you're living that no fear mentality. And when you go to sleep only for 1/3 of the day, eventually you bring that whole mentality and spirit of no fear into your dreams. if you're in fear during the day, and they're definitely messing with you when you're sleeping, so throughout the day at 24 hours, you're actually living in fear. And this will build up day by day. It keeps stacking on each other. And after a year or two, you're just going to have all these problems, all these fear. And that's why there are TIs out there just constantly complaining, constantly whining about stuff. Each time you have a problem, you complain about it's a real problem inside your mind. And it's also a trigger for the gang stalker to use against the TI. So for those TIs that are complaining about a lot of things, or making the minor things into something so important in their life, little did these TIs know that they are actually allowing the gang stalkers to have different method to mess with that TI. So for as a TI, the more problems you have, the more fears you have, more that means is more option for your gang stalkers and more triggers for your gang stalkers to mess with you. Any fear you have, any fear you have as a TI, it's a weapon for the gang stalkers to use against you. If you're in a relationship and it's not that solid, I mean, as a TI, I would imagine relationships are gonna be tough because your gang stalkers are messing with you in your relationship. They're making your partner talk to you in a way where you just where the TI where you feel like, oh man, how come they don't understand me, or there's like tension, right? I would say that's pretty common in relationships for TIs. That's because your gang stalker is messing with your partner. But do most TI know about this? No, they don't. But I'm sharing this with you. Based on my experience, that's a fact for me. I'm confident it's for you as well. Your gang stalker is messing with your relationship. And well, now they just kind of hit me right now. They're really trying to prevent me from saying what I need to say. Now they just kind of make me drawing a blank. And this is something they do. If I have something good I want to share with you and they don't want me to share it, they would purposely kind of prevent blood flow in my head, or right now I can hear tinnitus actually louder than before, constantly preventing my mind from continuing what I had to say. See, but as a TI, if you don't recognize this, you wouldn't even be talking about what I'm telling you right now, how they try to block my mind from finishing what I had to say. So they try to put me in a state of trance. You see, a state of trance. And this takes awareness to recognize it. And I was talking about relationship. Give me a second. I need to finish what I have to say. Hmm. Wow, I really had something good to say, and it completely blocked my mind right now. So I was saying about relationship, how they're messing with you in a relationship. And give me a second. Too bad this is a live. I can't rewind and you're in a relationship and they're messing with you and your partner. So when situations like this happen, don't give up. Sometimes my partner would lose, her key or whatever. I would tell her to trace back where she last saw her key, and she can kind of trace it back, but then she would forget. So this is what I'm going through right now, but just don't give up. Just give it some time. Keep challenging it. Because I know they're trying to block my mind from thinking about what I was going to say. So keep thinking about it and give it some time. Keep going back to it and keep challenging it. Well, I'm going to continue playing this for now.
For the government. They believe that we're terrorists or anything like that. And their job is to follow us around, to harm us. Some of them are even told to murder us. I mean, you might not believe this, but it's true. Aaron Alexis, he complained of being in the airport. He swore he could have swore up and down that these people were following him, and it's very well possible that.
Okay, I remember now. So I heard them. I heard a lower voice call telling me what I was going to say. So if you're in a relationship as a TI and the gang stalkers are messing with you in the relationship, and I was talking about how the more fear you have, there's more weapons for the gang stalkers. So if you're in a relationship as a TI and you argue with your partner, after a while, it's very likely that your gang stalkers will start feeding you ideas of your partner cheating on you. At the same time, they will do the same to your partner, feeding your partner ideas that you're cheating on your partner. And once you buy into that idea, that is really where you need to do more than just ignoring it. Because once you buy into the idea that your partner is cheating on you because of these gang stalkers manipulating you, you would have to take an extra step to really confirm or to find out if they are actually telling you the truth. And let me tell you, you must do that. Otherwise, the relationship will just go downhill. Because they will keep using it against you because they already know your emotion. They know your feeling. They know it bothers you. They know it bothers you. And they will use this to make you have more arguments with your partner. And no relationship, no people in a relationship can withstand arguments over and over again, being negative towards each other, and still be able to be happy in a relationship. Because as you're experiencing more of these negative situations in the relationship on a daily basis or a weekly basis, it stacks up. These are negative memories, negative experience, and it stacks up against you and your partner in this relationship. And the only way to counter it is for you to investigate and find out if that's really going on. But at the same time, you will also need to create positive experience. If you really care about the relationship, you still have to put in your effort and energy on top of all these gang stalking BS, all these voice to skull bullshit. You still have to find some energy in you and time to put into your relationship, to invest back into your relationship, to take your partner out to do something positive, to do something happy and something that both of you enjoy, and create more of these positive, good feeling experience. And you're going to need to do a lot of those to overcome all the negatives that you already been building because of all the negativity from what the gang stalkers created. And with me telling you this, and as a TI, if you just got into a relationship, it'll be beneficial for you, but it's hard to escape because the gang stalkers can work in your mind, it can work in your partner's mind. And if you're a male TI, the gang stalkers can manipulate your partner's a female, if it's a female, it can do more manipulating your partner's mind because it's a female. Now, I'm not trying to be sexist, but I'm telling you this right now. My gang stalker told me it's easier for them to manipulate a female's mind. Now, maybe because a female is more motherly in nature, but my gang stalker tells me it's easier to manipulate a female's mind than a male. And I could kind of see that because one's more loving, the female is more loving and more motherly and caring and probably more gullible, I guess, easier to believe and easier to be put in fear, right? I mean, it doesn't apply to all females, but in general, I would say. But I could be wrong on that one, but that's just what they told me. And these are problems and fears. If you have fears of cheating thoughts in your partner, you must confront it because the longer you drag it out and not caring about confronting those fearful thoughts, you're just letting the gang stalker have their way with you. They're just having their way with you. And soon you probably just don't even care about the relationship no more. Because that's what they'll do to you. They'll make you feel like, oh, I don't even care about this. I just want to move on, go find somebody else. Or there's going to be arguments so heated where you just both talk about leaving each other. And one day it'll probably happen. Or one's probably more abusive verbally than the other. And one day it's going to be separated. And it's going to make you not want to be in a relationship. So if you care about your partner, you're going to need to understand this part. You're going to need to, if you have fear of your partner doing something bad, you're going to need to go investigate for your own sanity, for your own defense in your mind. But if you have no fear mentality, that wouldn't even bother you because you'll understand if your partner is going to go find somebody else, and if that person can make her happier than you can make her happy, then you should be happy for your partner because you had the opportunity, but you didn't take care of the relationship like you should have to cause your partner to go find somebody else, and now they're happier. So all you can do is wish them happy. Don't wish them the worst in life. See, that's part of the philosophy of having no fear mentality. Because you're preventing the gang stalker from penetrating you. Does that make any sense? Because if you know your partner's happy or finding somebody else, and you just kind of thinking, oh, I hate that, I hate her or hate him. I want them to have the worst and have them have the worst relationship, this new relationship, just everything go downhill for them and want them to come calling back to me. All those type of like thinking, it's not the true no fear mentality that you need to have as a TI. Because it's still a negative way of dealing with your fear, but then you're not getting rid of the fear. You're just projecting really negative thoughts and hoping for a negative outcome in your partner, your ex-partner. And at the same time, you want to have a good outcome now that you're single. And these gang stalkers, let me tell you, they're not going to let that happen for you. They are assholes. They will purposely make sure you're not going to get that. It's just, they're lame like that. And you still got them gang stalker lingering around.
They were. Now, he could also have been tricked, because they have something called voice cloning technology, where they can clone a person's voice and play it back to you in your mind using the extreme low frequency wave technology. Myron May complained of the same thing. He complained of having, several police interactions and people following him. Now, I've had issues where in my life that I've known for sure that they've used the police against me, but I can't prove it. Now their message was lost in the media. Now we all know the media has a problem with covering the truth, but there is a huge problem with what we're talking about. This is not. Everyone has lack of knowledge with this. I mean, here's a guy who's actually worked with these technologies. He didn't create them. He didn't develop them. He just helped with the research he helped with the research and development of it, I guess. Am I correct?
Yeah, research and development in different areas. This is the greatest weapon system, weapon of mass control over every population on Earth. And so there are thousands of scientists working on it, and they don't even know their small part because everything's compartmentalized.
So that's how secretive they keep you guys with NDAs and everything. Hey, you work on this, you work on that.
You don't talk to anyone else. There's only a need to know clearance, and that's somebody is putting this together and using it on the
You're right.
population.
You're absolutely right. I mean,
scientists are like children. We just like developing stuff. We like playing with it. We don't know what it's going to be used for.
Yeah. And you're probably scared to ask.
Yeah.
You're probably told not to ask.
Yeah, you're told not to ask.
Well, it's interesting to me that you and I can sit here and have this conversation, and people will still say, "I don't believe it." That's kind of like those are the same idiots who will go to a Lamborghini manufacturer and say your cars don't go 200 miles an hour. So you're going to tell a guy who's actually dealt with this technology, or a guy who's created the car.
But you have to admit, it is really unbelievable that.
But look, Duncan,
this is stepping on the toes of God.
You're not.
Now, I gotta make a reference. Do not believe it's the voice of God. You're not listening to God. God's not telling you or try to put fear in you by making you do these different things. Your gang stalker will use guilt on you. So your gang stalker knows exactly what you're doing wrong, and you know what you're doing wrong. Okay, let's just say you're an alcoholic. So your gang stalker will most likely say, "Oh, we're only doing this because you're drinking alcohol today." So they're using it as a reason to mess with you because today you drink alcohol. But then you'll soon realize on the days that you don't drink alcohol, they'll do the same thing to you. So that contradicts on their reason of messing with you. And it doesn't make sense for God to mess with you because you drink alcohol. There's way better ways to getting you off of alcohol if God really was the voice talking to you. So that's a lie. It's not a voice of God. It's just voice of spirits. And let me tell you why it's so active in the world. And the reason right now and moving forward in the future is becoming more active is because right now, never before in history that we know of, energy, it's everywhere. We all carry a cell phone. Because I know my gang stalker made many reference that I have my cell phone close to me. And some of these spirits would tell me because of the cell phone, they're clinging on to me. And I remember one time in the beginning, I had my cell phone turned off, and through Voices Go, I heard one of the spirits that made a whining complaint about how I turned my cell phone off. So we all have cell phones. That's like a little energy for them. And that is why it's becoming so active now. Because if you go back 200 years ago, no one had cell phones. No one walks around with cell phones. And now we have cars. They cling on to cars because generate power. They cling on to light posts, stoplights. Every home you have lights, TV on, refrigerator, all that stuff. It's all power for these spirits. They are in all homes. Everyone's home's got spirits. Your home got spirit right now. Your gang stalkers are next to you right now. Same goes for mine. And they're all dumpster stains. That's why we looked into this gang stalking phenomenon. It's because we don't have a good experience with them. If you live in a home and there's no bad spirits messing around, you wouldn't feel like your life is being followed. You wouldn't feel like someone's watching over you. You wouldn't feel like you're being stalked and spy on. But if you live in a home with some bad spirit clinging onto the property, yeah, they're gonna mess around, and eventually you're gonna realize that. Eventually, you're gonna try to find out what's going on, and over time, some of you will stumble upon gang stalking and realize, oh wow, this is very similar. Well, some of you might not even look into gang stalking. You'll just start looking into demonic possession and all this other stuff, and you realize, wow, what's going on is kind of similar. There's similarities. I have to say, Dr. Robert Duncan most likely did work for these agency, but he himself got no confirmation of what this really is. Most majority TIs will just use government and they'll talk about certain technology, but then they don't go into details. And he can talk about beaming or whatever, sending radio and frequency sound. Let me tell you, I have a steel container, the shipping container, okay, insulated. They call it the reefer. I put myself into that, and I can still hear voice to skull. I'm a certified scuba diver. I go into the ocean, go into the ocean, and I can still hear voice to skull. I mean, I didn't go that deep, most like 60, 70 feet. I didn't go 200 feet, but I can still hear voice to skull. And there's no chip in my mind. There's no chip in my tooth. There's no chip in my ears. But there are spirits in my lungs. And there are spirits inside my ears and up my nostril.
Lying, but listen though, these guys, their lives or the car accident at 200 miles an hour.
Yeah,
This technology, my life.
they decided in order to break this news story, they're willing to sacrifice their lives and other people's lives and call them collateral damage, which I do not agree with. But their methods, I don't think, worked because our media is so controlled. The powers that be, the four major news channels and mass media will not cover this at all. I mean, they're controlled by governments.
Yeah, I mean, their whole thing was mental illness. That gun control.
That's just a way to discredit something that people don't understand. They don't talk about the true motives behind it. They just say mental illness, too complex for you to know. There are other discrediting words. You can call someone dumb. Don't listen to it. But they're just discrediting words. Listen to the information. Actually get the story and do your research, and then you'll find that there is a whole lot of truth that people didn't understand.
You've been doing research and targeted individuals after you figured out that hey, this shit isn't right.
Yeah.
And
it's totally immoral.
What's the oldest or the first targeted individual that you can research going back to?
Well, you're one of the oldest.
Jesus Christ.
I found some scripts, probably from 1962.
62.
But, they can't be verified.
Mm-hmm.
I do know in 1976, there were a large number of TIs that came forward. And it seems that every time the military gets a bigger budget, the Department of Defense and the black budgets with the intelligence agencies, the number of TIs that come forward increases. So they're grabbing more projects, improving this weapon system. And the majority, I think, is efficacy testing, improving the weapon system.
Now, excuse me, in your experiences, when they began doing this testing on subjects in the vast population, who were the people that they first began to target?
Well, originally, and there's a long history of CIA and Army and you name it, they would target the black community, those impoverished, those that had no voice in the community.
So sort of
Those
like
that can't speak up for themselves.
right, sort of like the Tuskegee experiment when they actually took all the black people and made them believe that, oh, you're getting free health care, but they pumped syphilis into
They
them.
actually pumped syphilis into them, and many of them died. And presidents later apologized. I can't believe we did that. Well, we're doing the same thing now, but even worse: torture experiments. Euthanize is behavioral modification. Yeah, it's literally liberty and happiness. Everything.
It's not. It's interesting you bring up the soul. I believe you wrote a book called Project Soul Catcher.
Right here.
Oh, yeah, that's it. People wonder, am I religious? What's your background? Well, my experience is, if you understand anything about the human body, it's pretty much frequency waves firing off from the brain whenever you tell your arm to move, whenever you close your eyes or anything. And it seems to me that this technology has found a way to completely mimic every possible brain wave that the human being can fire off. And if that's the soul, then we pretty much are soulless walking around. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I don't. Is that?
It's a matter of definition.
And I've never read your book, by the way. I might read it after this. But for many years, I felt isolated. I didn't know nothing about you. I didn't even know that you were out here trying to, raise awareness about this. And it wasn't until 2013, I believe. Yeah, it was 2013 that I first heard about you, and that was with the Jesse Ventura conspiracy theory show. That guy tried to make it seem like you were.
Yeah, he made me seem like the bad guy. I was behind all of this. I think people could see through that. I worked on portions of the technology, but I am not the mastermind, as he called me, of this great evil.
All right. So now, a lot of these targeted individuals, include myself, we complain of pain. Is it possible? I know it's possible, but I just want to know, these frequency waves that are traveling through our body, because we can hear these people. Let's just say these are sound waves. Let's just say they're sound waves. If they cut them up to a certain decibel level, for me, I feel like my brain.
See, I have to stop this because as I'm listening to this, he signed a non-disclosure agreement with the government. That's what he said in the beginning of this interview. I don't see how we can just sit there so calmly, just start talking about generic information on Voice to Skull, because I'm still waiting for that one piece of information that just puts him over the top. But I haven't heard that yet. And he said he signed a non-disclosure agreement to prevent him from talking about it, but yet he's so freely talking about this. It just contradicts what he's saying.
Brain was being electrocuted. And these guys are complaining the same thing. Is that something that's factual, or is it something that
No. Well, there's some truth to it. That a lot of these weapon systems that target the human nervous system and the brain can cause brain damage if they're done with too much power. But really what they're doing, on the most part, is just making it feel like they're frying you, making you feel pain. And this is why it's called no-touch torture, and why it's so secret. And look at how long it took us just to have the president admit, yeah, we tortured some folks, and that's physical torture.
Yeah.
This is actually even worse through the perception of the human brain, but it's harder to prove because you don't have marks or scars on your body. You just have mental scars. And so how do you show those? And then they just write you off as, well, must be mental illness. So they have a perfect cover. And this will be exposed eventually. The civilian technology will catch up. And, I've said this for over a decade. They'll pretend they just invented the technology and they'll make sure it's regulated and they won't use this for human rights violation. But they're doing it now, and they're just keeping it very covert. It's a cover story.
Now, he didn't explain anything that talks about the phantom touch. I'll tell you, based on my experience, the phantom touch is real. And for instance, like today, I was working on my electric unicycle. As I'm crouching forward, or leaning forward, I can feel my right side of my lower back starting to have stronger tension, discomfort. And I already know it's my gang stalker messing with me. So what I did was I just swing the area behind my where I can feel the tension. I just swing it, and I can feel in my palm that dense resistance in the air. Okay, like I've been telling you guys, they're concentrated in that area. So if you just swing your hand, you can feel resistance, kind of like swinging your hand in water. If you're in a swimming pool, you feel the resistance. Okay, not as strong as in the water, but you can feel this light resistance. You can feel the difference. So next time you guys should try that. If you start feeling like a phantom touch, like something is grabbing onto your leg or part of your body discomfort, just move out of the area or get up and just swing your hand in that general area, in the air, in the general area. You should feel a more dense resistance in the air. If you keep doing it, it gets lighter and lighter. It's as if you're moving it away because your gang stalkers are next to you. If you're watching this, they're listening to me talking just as you're listening to me. They're next to you.
Well, Myron May complained of feeling like he was being burned, and I had felt that before myself. Yeah. And when I did my research, after all this happened to me, and I started writing my book, I started trying to figure out, what the hell are they doing to me? I could say what's happening to me, but does it, is there any proof? And when I found out, they had something called ADS.
An active denial system, which works on 95 gigahertz. It's built by Raytheon. The Marines asked for it in the Gulf War, and they were denied. And Secretary of the Air Force, Michael Wynn, said we must test it on our own U.S. citizens so the international population doesn't get angry at us for the long-term effects first before we use it in war. He was fired right after that, so I assume it was for this comment. But it shows you what they think of us.
Yeah,
we're test subjects. We're all test subjects if you're not in the military.
Well, even I would have, to be honest with you, I would have preferred that they tested this on people in the military than me, and I'm sure Aaron, Alexis, and Myron May, feel the same way.
And that causes a burning sensation. It generally won't cause any permanent damage. It only gets absorbed into the very first layer of the tissue, and it stimulates the receptors that feel a fire, that feel heat. And it works from a kilometer and a half away.
A kilometer and a half?
Yeah, that's out of most people's shooting range.
Yeah,
you the best sniper. You can't defend yourself. No.
And there's no way to get away from this. We are people who are complaining about things that are happening to us in our own home, while we're at work, while we're out in public. And people who don't believe us because they can't see it. This is all remote technology that we can't get away from. And none of you are safe from it either. For some reason, you guys just aren't being tortured. I'm wondering, what is it going to take for the American people, to finally say, you know what, maybe these guys aren't mentally ill. Maybe this stuff actually exists. If you look at my book, I actually researched all the patents, and that was something that surprised me. Because I'll tell you what happened. My ex-girlfriend, I came home one day and told her, I got after $2 million was taken from me, and I went through so much going to jail. And, I told her, I said, these people, they really messed up my life. And she's going, what people? And I said, these Nazis, talking to me using satellite. And she said, have you ever looked this up? I said, none of this would be on the internet, because for several years, I thought that I was, I lived isolated because I never wanted to say anything to anyone because there's no proof. And when she looked it up, Duncan, there was all kinds of stories, and not only stories, but there's actually patents for these technologies that date back to the 50s and 60s. So it's kind of like, who are they using these technologies on? You admitted that citizens in your Jesse Ventura, you say that American citizens are being tortured. Who are the citizens that are being tortured? It quite possibly is the people who are complaining. So what would it take for you guys to listen to someone who developed it?
Well, this brings us to, I think, your concluding point, which is, what do you want Americans to do?
Oh, it just reminds me. I just want to make an announcement that The gang stalkers of Dr. Robert Duncan are all garbage dumpster stains. His gang stalkers are all trash. Every one of them.
Why are we having this interview? Myron May, I just listened to his radio show, his interview before he went on his killing spree, and he said, I want a congressional investigation. I want American media to cover this and look into it. What is your purpose?
Well, my whole purpose is just to get the word out that this is happening.
So to alleviate other people's suffering, so they don't get confused.
Exactly.
What's happening.
I don't want. My whole thing was this. I don't want their families to believe that they were mentally ill. Aaron Alexis' sister is writing a book, and she's fallen into the whole media. He was mentally ill. Your brother was not mentally ill. Myron May, his family thought he was mentally ill. His cousin, I sent him a couple of books and a few bracelets, and I designed a satellite electronic harassment awareness bracelet, which is something when I was going through my depression of suicide, it actually got me out of it to really be able to start putting this, put the word out. If I'm dead, I can't say anything. So for me, it's more so about listen to us. Understand we are not mentally ill. These guys here, successful, very successful. They were more successful than a lot of people who didn't go to school, who didn't put forth the effort.
No, that's right. I know Myron's story better than I know Alexa's story, and Myron follows these scripts. So the CIA have these torture scripts. They have to walk you down a certain path, and I don't want to get too complex, but it's called hyper game theory. And his script is exactly what I have interviewed 1,000 people for. His is the main one that they use in most people. So I have no regret calling Myron May a true targeted individual put in these government programs.
It's interesting.
Myron May, if only he understood the no fear mentality, he would still be around now. The voices scared him, and he bought into the idea of the threats of whatever these voices are doing. And yes, it pushed him to commit murder. And for those of you TIs out there receiving voice to skull, you can't be in fear. I know you want the voices to stop, but as of now, there's no method of stopping it. You're going to have to live with it, and you have to deal with it. And the best way, based on my experience, is to be having home court advantage in dealing with voice to skull. And the only way to have that home court advantage is to understand the no fear mentality in your mind. Moving forward, you have to find a way to take charge of these voices. And what works for me is I talk trash back to them. I talk so much trash to my gang stalkers. They're scared of me whenever I talk trash. I play audios for them when I go to sleep in low volume. That's what works for me to lessen the situation. But for you TIs out there, if you haven't talked trash and you're receiving voice to skull, I can't even imagine how tough it must be for you.
Interesting. Myron May and Aaron Alexis, they didn't really get to the point of where I was with this particular technology. There's something, Duncan, maybe you could explain this. I have these days where I forget things. It's not that I forget, my memory's being wiped, I believe. Is that possible?
Well, yeah, the military's been working on memory erasing drugs for quite some time, and the CIA, the MK Ultra experiments that were exposed, they wanted to create a programmed assassin that could commit a crime, forget it, and pass a polygraph in case they were ever asked about it. So I'm sure they're just doing memory experiments with it.
The memory experiment is that possible to be remotely inflicted as well without drugs?
Yeah, absolutely. Under the right circumstances.
Right.
Now, we're not talking every moment of every
No.
But under the right
It's
circumstances.
just certain moments of my day,
Yeah.
I completely forget. It's like I have no recollection of what happened. Also, there's something called forced speech, man. And it's possibly going to, be the reason why I won't be around anymore. But I have these days in where I can be sitting talking to you, and I feel a few vibrations, and I feel like something, go through me. The next thing you know, I'm saying words that I would never say. I mean, we can have a whole conversation, and it's not even me talking.
Well, yeah, and that, you're getting into a very complex topic, but initially that capability was used to screw up the speech of potential politicians. And so they're testing it, they're improving it, but let me ask you, doesn't it feel like Tourette's almost?
Yeah.
Something that you're saying things that you would never come out of your mouth, and they don't have to be, swear words.
No.
And this is, again, like I said, very complex. Your audio cortex has been mapped, and there are also always piping in subliminal messages into your brain. I mean, you're on the list, you're on the network.
The reason you say things that you normally don't say is because they are in your lungs. Now, I'm going to do something right now. I don't know if you guys can pick it up, but try to pick up not just me, my voice, but try to pick up another voice that's underneath my voice. Do you hear that static sound? It takes a little bit of practice to recognize, but I recognized this years ago that when I do that specific sound, I can hear one of the skull voices coming out of my mouth, as if it was behind or inside my lungs, but behind the tonsil. Do I don't know if you guys can pick that up.
The mind network. And so some of that will come out through your own motor cortex, the actions of verbiage. It's a weird sensation. I know it's going to be difficult for you to describe, but it's quite common amongst TIs in a certain portion of the program. The programs can last from 3 months to years, like many years. Yeah.
So a good way to defend against that is you have to talk slower and flex your throat a little bit. Put some energy on your throat area, but talking slower, give yourself more time to stop yourself from saying certain words that you would normally not say.
So you just haven't been taken out of the program yet. They're still.
So this is something that the whole forced speech. I can't find a patent on it. I don't know. I've never really heard.
There will not be a patent.
There won't be a patent on this. But I mean, it's one of those things where I have to deal with the repercussions of what I'm being forced to say, and I'm trying to explain to people that look, this isn't me saying this, and even after I'm forced to say it, I try to apologize.
I know, but it's your body.
Yeah,
so,
you're right.
Your body gets the repercussions, whatever
But
those are.
that doesn't, with any of you, I ask you this: what is worse, the fact that I'm saying what I'm saying, or the fact that I'm being forced to say it? You know, I don't think anyone would agree that, oh, but what he said is horrible. I think the more important thing is, why is he saying this? What's forcing him to say these kind of things? I mean, I can be forced to say some of the meanest things.
Well, there are things called chatterbots that I worked on that can be integrated into this weapon system that constantly cause the mind to talk to this person or perceived person. It's a computer, and it'll keep the mind spinning. But that bot, when in the right conditions, can cause you to speak some of its language. And these are not programmed nicely. These are demons. I mean, they're very bad, vocabulary that's going to be cloned into your head and into your mouth.
So you and I having a conversation. This has happened to me before. It gets to the point of where I'm repeating what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
And it's almost like I'm talking. It's like my brain is trying to comprehend.
Yeah.
It's
puppet mode. I've heard TIs that have been made to slap themselves. Literally it's puppet. They've created cerebral cortex cloning. And initially, I think the CIA term was remote hypnotic intracerebral control. And it's like a hypnosis. It has a little influence over you, but it should not have enough that you're going to harm yourself or harm anybody else's, the way hypnosis works. And that's kind of how TIs have described what you're going through.
Hypnosis, I call it state of trance. When he said TI would slap themselves, I believe that. And I can say when that happened, it's usually after some type of intense moment where the TI is adrenaline pumping or the TI is in such frustration due to emotional distress. It would slap him or herself without thinking about what he or she is doing. Most likely it's when the TI is upset. That's when the TI is vulnerable. And when you're in an argument, a confrontation with someone, yes, it's true that these phrases could just pop into your mind and the TI would just end up saying those phrases. And sometimes those phrases are usually very hurtful or phrases that the TI wouldn't say to anyone or normally even think about saying stuff like that. But in that heated moment, in that heated argument, the TI is more likely to be mind controlled in a way, like state of trance, without knowing and kind of just going back and forth arguing. And phrases will pop into the TI's mind, and it's very possible the TI would just yell out those phrases. Sometimes, we all seen videos, maybe when a person is arguing, they'll yell out phrases like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to say stuff like that. When the person's calm, they would most likely never imagine saying that they're going to kill someone. But when it's heated arguing, all of a sudden they'll shout out, I'm going to kill you. That phrase alone, it could be put into their mind and they'll just end up saying it. So that's why it's important to stay calm and avoid any confrontation, because these gang stalkers love it when the TI is in those type of situations. And to the gang stalkers, it's just all laughs and giggles. They think it's fun to mess with the TI.
Have you ever, I don't know, any other... So Duncan, a lot of TIs are complaining of being threatened with promises of freedom. Myron May, he was threatened with, if you go out, he actually put a Facebook post up, if he committed murder, that he would get his freedom. In my life, I've been threatening with, if you don't do something that we're telling you to do.
Now, this is very important. Do not believe lies from these gang stalkers. If you're receiving voice to skull and you're in fear, you're vulnerable, and they're threatening you and telling you to do certain things, otherwise they're gonna not leave you alone, do not believe them. Especially when they tell you to commit murder. That is nonsense. You, as a TI, will not get away with murder. And if you do get away, they will tell you to do it again. And you'll most likely get caught the second time. So don't get yourself down that path of no return. Do not hurt anyone. Do not believe their lies. Yes, they will try to tell you to do certain things that are just a daily, normal activities, maybe activities you don't normally do, but then they'll tell you to go do it. If you're in fear, yeah, I could see you just doing those things. But then once you do those things, if they don't leave you alone, then you should know that you need to stop taking their orders. What works for me is I talk trash back to them using voice to skull.
We're going to murder your grandmother. And actually, she wasn't murdered. But what I didn't do within minutes when I ran upstairs, she has a pacemaker. And, she began slumped over in a wheelchair. And, we ended up having to use a life alert and send her to the hospital. So that took away all the idle threats. So I became completely, pretty much like whoever the hell is talking to me, I'm like their slave, It's like you're threatening my family, you're showing me that you can do that.
And that was outlawed by U.S. protocol, even in the torture documents that were released under Obama. Threats of killing someone's family is not allowed, but they do it anyway. And it's a common tactic in torture and for behavior manipulation and interrogation. You don't tell us what we want to know, we're going to kill you and your family and do this to them. And so almost all TIs, and that's also why I know Iron Man was a real TI, they get that script. Kill your father and we'll let you go, or go on a killing spree or whatever. They say that, and no human's brain is going to come up with that naturally. It's a joke. And this is just classic torture.
So what he complained of, and what I wrote about and complained about, it's something that's just in the script of once you become a CIA or FBI, this is how you're trained to manipulate the individual.
Yeah. These are scripts, and that's how they're trained. They go through them. I've listed quite a few of them in my book, Project Soul Catcher. But I'm coming out with what's called a no-touch torture document that parallels all these tortures that TIs go through, exactly follows the torture methods that have already been disclosed in the Senate Intelligence Committee summary of CIA torture.
Now, with your knowledge of all of these different technologies, microwave technologies, are they capable of causing heart attacks that you know of?
Yes, they are. And this was actually written about in the 1970s, supposedly by Russians that were ahead of us in this technology, but that's just how they get their budgets. We're ahead of them. That there is a way to cause such stress to the cardiovascular system, a runaway spooking, if you will, using these terror tactics, and that's what it is, it's domestic terrorism, to stress the heart enough that it can collapse if there's an illness, or to cause a stroke. So they call it a remote heart attack.
A remote heart attack.
Yeah.
Using remote technology. I mean, that's, I'm laughing now, but it's a very scary reality for those of us who are targeted individuals.
Now, if what he's saying, the remote heart attack, if that is actually being used, whoever has that technology controls the world, because let's just say the Russians got that technology. That means they can easily get rid of any politician they want. Wouldn't it? They can get rid of president as soon as president are put in. No one can prove that, oh, the Russians are using this to kill whoever politician. So if this was true, then a lot of politicians will be dying from heart attacks. Now, when he asked, is it possible for microwave energy weapons to cause heart attacks? Now, from my experience, my gang stalkers with using phantom touch would attack my body on a daily basis. And over time, okay, what they do is when they attack my body, what they're doing is they're clogging the blood vessels. For instance, my elbow on my left arm. So when I bend my elbow, sometimes when I'm holding onto my phone, bending my elbow a little bit, kind of holding my phone, they would attack the inner part of my elbow, on my arm, the opposite side of my elbow. And if you look between your forearm and your bicep, okay, there is right there in the middle, there is a lot of blood vessel, okay? And it connects all the way to your fingers. So when I'm bending my arms, they would like to attack that blood vessel. And what it does is create these bumps. And each one of these bumps on your body, on your blood vessel, it slows down your blood pressure from reaching, or slows down your blood from reaching to your fingertips or to your toes. And over time, as this pressure, it becomes irregular throughout your body, the blood flow, over time it's getting backed up. And that's what creates high blood pressure. Kind of like a water hose. You turn on the water, and then there's a lot of kinks along the way. So the water flow is restricted. But as soon as you clear the kinks, the water starts shooting out. Same concept. So imagine your blood vessel, it's the water hose, and all these kinks are along the water hose. It's your blood vessel with these little bumps. So over time, it restricts your blood flow, and they can manipulate your blood flow. That's why these gang stalkers are attacking you every day. And to a point, eventually, a certain part of your body's getting so beat up, it's easier for you to start feeling pain. It's because they've been attacking that area for a long time. A very common area, it's your back, the right side of your back. They love to attack that area. And they love to attack your joints, any blood vessel that goes along your joints. So it's not good if you like to sit on your legs for too long. You're really helping them because they're just attacking your knees. If you're sitting on your leg, on any one of your legs, they'll start attacking your knees, attacking your blood vessel, restricting blood flow. And over time, okay, over years, you're gonna start realizing, how come my legs feel so weak? How come my arm is so weak? How come I lose the strength I used to have? It's because there's less blood flowing to that area. So if you're sleeping and your posture is really bad, you don't sleep straight, flat on your back with both arms next to your thighs, just flat straight, they are going to start attacking any area that you're kind of sleeping funky. Like if you sleeping on one arm, sleeping on the side, they would attack your shoulder, and they would attack that area and preventing blood flow to your arm even more. Even though you're sleeping on it, they would make sure they'll really attack that area. So when you wake up, you start feeling, oh, why is my shoulder kind of hurting? Or why is my back hurt a certain way? Or my neck is because you didn't sleep straight posture. Yes, that could cause it, but the gang stalkers definitely attacking your neck if you're sleeping kind of crooked. They love to attack your body if you help them out by bending certain joints, okay? Or if you're lifting too heavy weight, they love to attack your hand, your thumbs, the inner part of your thumb, so you can't really grab onto something for too long. you're starting to feel the inner part of your thumbs kind of hurting. It's because they've been attacking that area for so many years. It's restricting any blood flow to that area when you're grabbing onto an object. And eventually you start having cramps and pains on your thumbs or your hands or your arms, on the bottom of your feet. So with the heart attack, they love to cling onto your chest. That's what my gang stalker would tell me. So when they're beating up on your chest over years and years and years, there's actually restricting so much blood flow. And yeah, you eventually get to a point where they could just most likely squeeze your blood to a point where just preventing it from coming into your heart and preventing your heart from pumping any blood. And yeah, you probably could die from a heart attack. But let me tell you, usually when this happens, the heart attack doesn't come from the inside. You're gonna feel a pressure from the outside. Okay, I came to realization when I heard a story of this person working, and he's got a heart attack, but then he didn't die, thank God. So he explained what happened and what it felt like, and he felt like it was a pressure on his chest. So the pressure was coming from the outside. And if you're starting to feel a pressure on the outside of your chest, remember I told you, you can swing your hand, get up, walk away from the area, block your chest. You can start wearing thicker jackets or thicker clothing. Put a magazine there if you want to block it. Stuff a magazine inside your garment if you feel like it, like an armor. But if you swing your arm just around your chest area, it helps. But as you're swinging your arm, you're going to feel like you're losing airflow because you're also in your lungs. You're also restricting you from inhaling air. So you're going to feel like, oh, I can't really breathe. So just don't panic. What works very good is I turn on the air blower, put on a hot air blower, a hair blower, a hot hair blower. That makes me feel so good, so much better. It's almost like instantly it works. It get rid of these phantom pains, these phantom touches. But as soon as you get rid of it, I mean, they're still there. They just moved to a different area. Like some of you might realize you try to fix one area and then you can feel it, the pain moving like along your body to a different area because they can move around. But at least if you feel like pressure on your chest, you go turn on a hair blower, you put on hot, put it on your chest, and you're gonna feel so much better. But that also means, you're very vulnerable at that point because they can do that to you at any time. And a good solution that I can share with you is if you have the money, you want to have a hot tub, okay, 104 degrees all the time. Have a hot tub where you can sit in maybe 3-4 times a week, and a steam room. A steam room can clear your lungs and clear your pores. It does so much wonders. But if you want to clear those clogged blood vessels, you're going to need to sit in a hot tub in hot water. And when you're sitting in the hot water, just massage your arm, massage your blood vessel, and over time you can push those bumps and clear them. Because you need to heat up your body and heat up your blood flow to ensure your blood is flowing smoothly. And when it's flowing smoothly, you can just help it out by massaging certain part of your body where you feel like there's bumps on your blood vessel and just massage it and clear it. So a hot tub is very important. If you have the money, go get it. If you have a hot tub, use it. It's got to be hot though, like 104 degrees consistently. Not just a hot tub with hot water and then you sit in it, it gets cooler and cooler and cooler. No, you want to get a hot tub that can keep the temperature consistently. And a steam room, if you have these two combinations, it's going to really help you. It will help anyone, not just TI.
Also, I've had times, and maybe you can explain this, I don't know if you can or not, but I have images that are in my book I wrote about how when I was a kid. They would tell me and they would show me images, and they would say, well, don't show it to me on television, we just showed you. And I would literally go flip through the channels and find the cartoon that they had just, the person speaking to me had just put in my head. I mean, is that possible that they can turn my brain into a television?
Only if they're watching it at the same time. Usually what they do is they pipe in very scary mental images. So in physical torture, they'll use barking, growling dogs or insects, putting them on the person, things like that. With the no-touch torture, they usually use more mythological creatures like demons and such, and pipe those into the person's head. And they're being visually cloned to some extent. So under usually darker lighting, the person's what's called the visual workspace in the human mind will see this image and have some sort of reaction to it. So they're usually scary images.
And they can do the same thing, while you're asleep with dreams. Pretty much create your whole dream where you
dream manipulation. Again, people won't believe this technology is actually here. And there's so many awesome uses for this technology for good. I mean, imagine your partner, your life partner, you can share a dream with them and you're both in it. I mean, it's just awesome. But right now it's just being used for evil, and it's part of the manipulations. American Indians always thought their dreams were from God. And so it's a way to manipulate a person and reprogram them, even in their most vulnerable state, which is sleep.
And these weapons, they're calling them the voice of God. These are God weapons of God, pretty much.
Well,
because they can mimic all what humans believe God can do.
Exactly. And so 95% of the world is God-fearing, and so they call them voice of God weapons, because you can say, lay down your weapons, this is Allah speaking to you. And people,
They actually did that, didn't they? And there's a storm, I believe I read somewhere.
I can't confirm or deny that.
That's maybe the NDA, folks. I don't know, but I respect it either way. But the earlier, we were talking about how they make you feel emotions. If you research, they did it to Wall Street protesters. So if you guys do any research to figure out, has this technology been used against American people, other than just myself talking about it, the Aaron Alexis or the Myron May, you can quite possibly find out that yes, this exists. How many people would you think are targeted individuals?
I get asked that question a lot, and all I can do is a minimum 10,000 worldwide, 2,000 in the United States. And you have to imagine, they can only collect so much data doing this. And the Pentagon had a paper that we can falsely imprison and abuse 1.6% of any population without a successful revolution. So it may be as high as 1.6% of any population. So there's a huge margin of error. The only people that come forward are those who know how to use the internet, make phone calls. And so I know I'm underestimating, but right now 10,000 is...
That's worldwide.
Worldwide, 2,000.
Now, I always tell you guys in my videos, I believe the entire worlds are TIs. Every human on Earth are TIs. But there's a percentage of the TIs whom are the true TIs, and those are people that are investigating and researching gang stalking. So you and I are the true TIs because we're the ones that knows about, we have the awareness of what's going on. While some of us true TIs don't really know exactly the full picture of what's happening, or stuck somewhere on a certain phase of this gang stalking phenomenon, but we have the awareness. While the majority of the people on Earth do not have the awareness, but then they are listening to these lower voices skull on a daily basis. Who are these people? These are the people, for instance, like your family member don't see eye to eye with what you're saying, or some of your friends might think of you as crazy. I mean, they are a TI as well, but they just don't have the awareness like you that recognize what's happening and what's going on. But I believe every human on Earth is a TI. Like I said before in my other videos, the gang stalkers controls this planet. We can all agree that whatever's going on with this phenomenon is very advanced. You might think they're not advanced, they're doing things right in front of you, but then let's put it this way. Do you have solid proof that can really prove what's going on? You don't. And the fact is, the gang stalkers are always seem to be one step ahead of you. And I believe these gang stalkers have many more ways to manipulate us true TIs that we haven't even experienced yet. Because they don't need to show their hand if we haven't gotten to that point. They're just going to keep doing whatever works on us, and which is not, they don't really need to show us very much. So I believe that the gang stalkers controls the world, and it's not a government. I call them spirits because I know there are spirits everywhere. There are more spirits on this planet than living humans. And because now we start having cell phones and TVs and cars and all these electricity everywhere, it's like an energy source for these spirits. And that's why there's more activities around the world. So as we move forward into the future, as people start having more cell phones, more people with TVs and computers and monitors and all this stuff, there will be more activities. It's going to keep increasing. But I believe every human on earth is a targeted individual. But you and I, we are the true TIs to be aware of what's going on.
You know, Barry Trower, if you guys do any research about this, you might find Barry Trower. He's a British naval intelligence agent over in London. He actually admitted that citizens would be brought into, this particular program. They would be made to seem like they're mentally ill. That then they would hire a psychiatrist that was unknowing to the experiment. And if the psychological evaluations came back as, schizophrenia or delusional or anything like that, that was considered a success. And the test subject would be locked up. And the people who are doing this didn't even care, Well, so, I mean, this type of technology and this form of torture has existed for several years. I don't know what it's going to take for you guys to believe this, but I'm someone who's really tried in my life, and I don't think Duncan would be out here trying to expose this. I mean, we don't get any money from doing this. I mean, to be quite honest with you, everything's been taken from both of us. I don't know about you, but I don't see you living in a multi-million dollar home, driving a Ferrari or a Lamborghini.
Greed is not a motive of mine.
I'm
here to help the human race. I understand.
And I really appreciate your help, because without you, these young men here wouldn't have had any kind of proof to say that this is what, here's someone who can admit at least that what we're trying to say is real, very real.
And people, and that's, I think, one of the points that you're making for this film is a lot of it's for family of people who are targets that, you can believe what you want, what the psychiatrist will say, but remember, they're just trained by textbooks. There's no real science behind it, that industry. There's no blood draw that you can get and that will prove mental illness. And so what the target, the victim, wants their friends and family to understand is, this is happening to me, this is real. Give them comfort words. Just say, yes, I believe you. I'm sorry, I don't know what to do for you, but I do believe you, this is happening.
That's very true, and I absolutely agree with him. The medical field, when it comes to schizo, those doctors are just textbooks. They learn from textbooks. They themselves are not ex-schizos that got out of it. So it's just, thinking about it, it's kind of really messed up how the system works to have these doctors learn from textbook to diagnose people of a symptom that they themselves have no experience in other than reading from a textbook. And with people explaining similar situations, maybe it's time for them to realize there is something going on here. And yes, I understand some TIs are very extreme and they're kind of over the top. There's going to be people like that anywhere. But then there are TIs that are very logical and calm and frustrated, but yet still remain calm. And they can handle themselves in society, but it's just tougher now for them. But why should they be labeled as schizo when they're going through this? And the doctors have no experience in it. But it's become a norm now in this practice where they just listen to, listen to the patient for a little bit. Oh, talking about voices, this other stuff. Medications. Just write it off, medications, label the patient as schizo or bipolar or multiple personality disorder. It's becoming a norm, and there's really no research into these problems that are true, and it's real, and it's not a mental thing. And yes, when this is happening, some TIs can't handle it, and they could go psycho. Yeah, they could go crazy, because one thing led to another. All these bad events happening. Yeah, eventually it'll start acting crazy, and that's very unfortunate for those TIs, those true TIs. But there needs to be a change in this industry, in the medical field. They need to not just write medications and start labeling the patient as this and that with no experience in it. They themselves have no experience in it. So it's a huge flaw in this system. But it generates so much money. I don't see how it's going to change. Schizophrenia itself, I did a search. It generates like $8 to $10 billion a year. That's so much money. That's a lot of jobs in that field. And I don't see how we can change that. Well, if you know of an idea, please share, because that's so much money. It's so many jobs are depending on it. These doctors, these people in the medical field, they got the credibility. So it's even another obstacle for us TIs to overcome. So it's like their words has more value than us in any field. Either dinner with a bunch of friends at the tables, their words just always have more weight, more power, and just more respected. And since there's so much money involved, I don't see how we can actually change that industry to really let them know your job is really kind of bullshit, because you have no experience in this. We're sharing our experience with you, and you have no experience, but yet you label as a certain with a certain problem, disorder. It doesn't even sound right. Where's the logic in that? But the whole world already bought into this system, so it's like it's going to be a movement to change a $8 to $10 billion industry. That's really tough, but I'm sure it's doable if the right TIs are put together and the proper argument and make enough noise. But as of now, it's going to be that way. So if you're a TI, you don't want to get yourself in that situation where you get labeled as a schizo, because once you get labeled as a schizo, you lose your credibility. Your words will be less credible. And as you keep explaining away what's going on with you, it's going to be meaningless, because you already been labeled as a schizo, and I don't know how to reverse that. So maybe you can research how to reverse that being labeled as that. But I really don't know how. So as a TI, be calm in public. Don't get yourself into trouble. Don't get labeled as that. And you have to understand no fear mentality.
And that would have helped.
That would have helped those two.
I actually believe it, because in my life, my family, once they really, I hate to say this, but it took Aaron and Alexa's story, I believe, for my family to really, get into what's really going on. And, the families would be more understanding about this. And I'm hoping that
there would be less frustration,
yes,
and then less events like this occur.
Yes, exactly. Well, Duncan, thank you so much for the interview today.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful evening.
Yeah. All right.
All right, everybody. So that's the interview. And thank you for joining me. It's late. I will host a live maybe tomorrow or the day after. But thank you for joining me, and feel free to comment, like, share. Have a good night. Shoot home. Signing out.